America, land of the free, home of the brave, a beacon of hope. We tell ourselves these stories, we cling to these ideals. But what about the stories we don't tell? The ones hidden in the shadows, the ones that whisper of power, influence, and secrets. America has a dark side, it always has. It's time to shine a light on those dark corners. Let's talk about the hidden truths of power, politics, and influence in America. We're going to delve into a world where secrecy reigns, where government actions operate outside the public eye, where political scandals erupt, exposing the underbelly of power. We'll uncover the influence of corporate interests. We'll examine the impact of wealth on decision-making. We're going to explore the uncomfortable truths that shape our nation. This isn't about conspiracy theories, this is about facts, documented events, actions with real consequences. It's about understanding the systems at play, the systems that often operate without our knowledge or consent. It's time to pull back the curtain. It's time to ask the tough questions. It's time to confront the hidden truths of America. Let's start with a trip down memory lane. Buckle up, folks, because this is where things get weird. We're talking about MK Ultra. Now, this wasn't some underground indie band. This was a top-secret CIA program. Its goal? Mind control. Yes, you heard that right. Mind control. The CIA experimented on unsuspecting citizens. They used LSD, hypnosis, and other methods. They wanted to see if they could control people's minds. It was a dark chapter in American history. A chilling example of government overreach, and it happened right under our noses. But wait, there's more. Remember the Iran-Contra affair? Secret arms deals, funding rebels, lying to Congress? It was like a bad spy movie, except it was real life. And it involved some of the most powerful people in the country. The Iran-Contra affair showed us that the government was willing to operate outside the law. It showed us that accountability was often in short supply. These historical examples serve as a stark reminder. The government has secrets. Secrets it's willing to protect at all costs. Secrets that can have devastating consequences. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? Let's talk about scandals. Juicy political scandals. The kind that make headlines and topple presidencies, scandals like Watergate. Watergate. A name that lives in infamy. It started with a break-in at the Democratic National Committee headquarters, but it quickly spiraled into a full-blown political crisis. The Watergate scandal revealed a culture of corruption. It showed us how far those in power were willing to go to hold on to it. The cover-ups, the lies, the abuse of power. It was a watershed moment in American history. It eroded public trust in government, and it left an indelible stain on the presidency. Then, there were the Pentagon Papers. Leaked documents that exposed the truth about the Vietnam War. Documents that the government tried to suppress. Documents that showed the public had been misled. The Pentagon Papers proved that the government wasn't always truthful, that it sometimes manipulated information to serve its own agenda. It was another blow to public trust, another reminder that power often operates in secrecy. Now let's talk about money. Specifically, the influence of corporate interests on political decisions. Because let's face it, money talks in Washington. Corporations spend billions of dollars lobbying politicians. They donate to campaigns, they fund think tanks, and they expect something in return. They expect policies that benefit their bottom line, policies that often come at the expense of the public good. We've seen this time and time again. From environmental deregulation that benefits polluting industries to tax breaks for the wealthy that exacerbate income inequality. Corporate influence is pervasive, it's insidious, and it's undermining our democracy. We need to ask ourselves, who are our elected officials really representing, the people or the corporations that line their pockets? It's a question we should all be asking, because the answer has a profound impact on our lives. Section 5. Modern covert operations? A threat to civil liberties? Remember those secretive government actions we talked about earlier? They haven't gone away. In fact, they've evolved. Modern covert operations are more sophisticated than ever. They often involve surveillance, data collection, and targeted propaganda. And they raise serious concerns about civil liberties. From the NSA's mass surveillance programs to the increasing use of facial recognition technology, our privacy is under assault. The government is collecting vast amounts of data on its citizens. Data that can be used for a variety of purposes, some of which are deeply troubling. We need to have a serious conversation about the balance between security and freedom. Because if we're not careful, we risk sacrificing our liberties in the name of security. And that's a road we don't want to go down. Section 6, the DEI backlash: corporate America's response to political pressure. Now, let's shift gears and talk about something a little different: diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. For years, corporations have been talking a big game about DEI. They've hired diversity officers, they've implemented bias training, they've made public commitments to creating more inclusive work environments. But lately, there's been a backlash fueled by political pressure. We've seen a wave of anti-DEI legislation across the country. Legislation that restricts how race and gender can be taught in schools, legislation that limits the rights of LGBTQ+ individuals, and corporations have been quick to respond. Many companies have rolled back their DEI programs, they've canceled diversity initiatives, they've silenced conversations about race and inequality. Why? Because they're afraid of alienating customers. They're afraid of being targeted by politicians. They're putting profits ahead of principles, and that's a dangerous precedent to set. Section 7, case studies in power deportation laws and security clearances. Let's get specific. Let's talk about some recent examples of power, politics, and influence in action. Take deportation laws, for instance. We've seen the Trump administration use these laws aggressively, targeting not just undocumented immigrants but also legal residents. People who have lived in this country for years. People who have built lives here. We've seen families torn apart. We've seen people deported for minor offenses. We've seen the government stretch the limits of the law to achieve its political goals. It's a stark reminder of the human cost of these policies. A reminder that behind the statistics there are real people whose lives are being upended. Then there's the issue of security clearances. These clearances give individuals access to classified information. They're supposed to be granted based on a person's trustworthiness and loyalty to the country. But under the Trump administration, we've seen security clearances used as a political weapon. Individuals who have criticized the president have had their clearances revoked. Individuals who have cooperated with investigations into the Trump administration have been targeted. It's a blatant attempt to silence critics and undermine accountability. Section 8, transparency and technology, a brighter future. It's easy to get discouraged when we talk about these issues. The power imbalances, the lack of transparency, the influence of money in politics. It can feel overwhelming. But it's important to remember that there's always hope. There are people fighting for change. And there are tools at our disposal that can help us create a more just and equitable society. One of those tools is transparency. When we shine a light on wrongdoing, when we expose corruption and abuse of power, we make it harder for those in power to operate in the shadows. We hold them accountable. And we create the possibility for real change. Technology can also play a role in promoting transparency. From social media platforms that allow us to share information and connect with others to data analysis tools that can help us uncover patterns of corruption, technology can be a powerful force for good. Section 9. Conclusion. A call to action. So, where do we go from here? What can we do as individuals to address these systemic issues? The first step is awareness. We need to educate ourselves about the hidden truths of power, politics, and influence. We need to understand how these systems operate and how they impact our lives. But awareness is not enough. We need to take action. We need to hold our elected officials accountable. We need to demand transparency. We need to support organizations that are fighting for social justice and economic equality. We need to use our voices. Write to your representatives, attend protests, start conversations with your friends and family. The more we talk about these issues, the harder it will be to ignore them. The fight for a more just and equitable society is an ongoing one. It requires constant vigilance, it requires courage, and it requires all of us to do our part. So let's get to work.